On this week's episode of the Rambler Sports Locker, the cross-country team competed in the National Catholic Championships, and RSL reporter Ana Maria Nunez reports on the number 29.
Also, the women's golf team hosted the Loyola Fall Invitational, and RSL analyst Nick Schultz took a closer look at the women's soccer game against DePaul.
Welcome back to another edition of the Rambler Sports Locker. I'm Evan Nave.
And I'm Queenie Ama. Earlier this week, the women's golf team hosted a two-day tournament in Flossmoor, Illinois. The Loyola Fall Invitational kicked off on Monday morning. The first day ended with 4 Ramblers finishing in the top 10 on the individual leaderboard. This was enough to put them in first heading into the second day of competition. On Tuesday, the women continued to dominate, ending their final round with a team total of 312 strokes, for a 54-hole total of 934 strokes. Those totals earned Loyola the invitational win out of the 11 teams that competed. This is the first time since 2014 that the women have won a tournament when they also won the Loyola Fall Invitational. Junior Elena Bowser finished as the individual runner-up for the entire event. She posted a score of 72 strokes for her first round, 79 strokes for her second round, and 76 strokes in the third and final round. She was only 5 shots from first place finisher Anita Abrahamova of Indiana University, Purdue. Bowser and the rest of the women's golf team will compete next at the Golden Grizzlies Invitational in Rochester, Michigan on September 25th and 26th.
This past Friday, the Loyola men's and women's cross-country teams competed in the National Catholic Championships hosted by Notre Dame University. Sophomore Riley Demulineri of the men's team and junior Julia Demko of the women's team both placed in the top 10. Demko placed second in the women's 5K open race. Her time of 18 minutes and 50.3 seconds put her only 21 seconds behind the first place finisher. In the men's 5-mile race, Demulineri finished in 8th place with a time of 27 minutes and 14 seconds. The men will next compete at the Notre Dame Invitational on September 29th, and the women will next compete at the Greater Louisville Classic on September 30th.
A lot has been happening outside of Loyola sports. RSL reporter Ana Maria Nunez has more on this week's By the Numbers.
Thanks, Queenie. For this week's By the Numbers, I'm going to take a look at the number 29. It's almost postseason for the MLB, and 29 years ago, the Dodgers won the World Series 4-1 against the Oakland Athletics. This year, the Dodgers have the best record in all of the major leagues. They have already claimed their division in the National League and are quickly becoming one of the favorites to win the title this year. With the 2017 baseball season almost over, next season's schedule has been released. The 2018 season will start on March 29th, the earliest starting date for the MLB ever. Next year, the All-Star Game will also be held in Washington, D.C. for the first time in over 50 years, and the Cubs will start their season at home against the Cardinals. Switching over to the NBA, 29-year-old Golden State Warrior Stephen Curry donated $118,000 to help with the flooding that Houston suffered after Hurricane Harvey. Curry partnered with Active Faith Sport, who offered to donate $1,000 for every three-pointer Curry made out of a total of 25 attempts. He made 18 shots and gave an extra $100,000 out of his own pocket. You're the real MVP, Curry. Born in the same year as Curry, 29-year-old soccer player Marcelo Vieira just signed a contract agreeing to stay with Real Madrid until 2022. This is exciting news for the fans of the soccer team. Along with Marcelo, Real Madrid also renewed the contracts of Isco Alarcón and Daniel Carvajal, who have proven to be key players for the team. The Chicago Bears lost this past weekend, 29-7, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was the Bears' 9th straight road loss dating back to 2015. The Bucs had 4 turnovers during the game, helping them to a 26-0 lead. Three injuries left the Bears in a weak position throughout the game. In the first half, linebacker Nick Kukowski went down with a pectoral injury. Also, left guard Tom Copton left the game with a hip problem, and right guard Just Sitton had an injury to his ribs. The Bears will face the Pittsburgh Steelers this weekend at Soldier Field. Bear down, Chicago Bears. That's it for 29 and this week's By the Numbers. I'm Ana Maria Nunez. Back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Ana Maria. Men's soccer lost their second consecutive game last Saturday. The Ramblers faced the University of Wisconsin-Madison on September 16th. Freshman goalkeeper Aiden Aylward allowed the Badgers to score 2 goals during the match. The Ramblers were shut out 2-0. The Ramblers are now 3-4 for the season and 0-2 in conference play. The men's soccer team will next be at home this Saturday against Southern Illinois University.
The women's soccer team won Friday night against Chicago State University. The Ramblers pummeled the Cougars, ending the game with a score of 9-0. The Ramblers are now 6-3 for the season and are 1-0 in the conference play. The women's soccer team has improved from the last season and continued to show that Sunday when they were back in action against DePaul University. Our star reporter Nick Schultz is here with the game recap.
After putting on a show against Chicago State, the Loyola women's soccer team returned to Loyola Soccer Park on Sunday to take on city rival DePaul University. The Ramblers came in with an 8-7-1 record all-time in the Red Line rivalry and came out firing. Just 28 seconds in, sophomore Alexa Tatterin saw her header knocked away by the DePaul goalkeeper. After a handball was called on DePaul in the penalty box, junior Jenna Cesny nailed a penalty kick to get the Ramblers on the board and earn a hug from teammate Madison Kimball in the 16th minute. Loyola made DePaul goalkeeper Lauren Frasca work as they got 9 shots on goal, including this one from Emily Lang to make it 2-0 Ramblers in the 83rd minute. Loyola goalkeeper Maddie Ford went 6 of 6 on saves to earn her 3rd straight shutout as the Ramblers improved to 7-3 on the year. Through 10 games, the Ramblers have already won 2 more games than they did all of last season. The offense has been impressive so far. The 26 goals through 10 games is more than the 22 scored in 19 games last season, and Cesny currently leads the MVC with 7 goals, while fellow senior Katie Grawl sits in 3rd with 5. Ford is also having a solid season, as she is tied for 3rd in the MVC in saves with 39 and with a 1.142 goals against average. With 5 conference games coming up after a stop at Indiana University, Purdue University, Fort Wayne, the Ramblers could make some noise come tournament time if they keep playing at the rate they are now. Loyola is scheduled to head to the University of Evansville tomorrow to take on the Purple Aces at 7 p.m. For the Rambler Sports Locker, I'm Nick Schultz. Back to you, Evan.
Thanks, Nick. The women's volleyball team competed at the Stacey Clark Classic Women's Volleyball Tournament this past weekend. The Ramblers lost to Miami University of Ohio, 3-0. Loyola started off strong in the first set, but the Red Hawks eventually won 25-15. In the second set, Miami once again beat the Ramblers 25-15. During the third set, the Ramblers were narrowly defeated with just 2 points, with Miami claiming the victory 25-23. On the second day of the Stacey Clark Classic Tournament, Loyola faced Purdue University, where they were once again swept 3-0. Purdue, who is 10-1 on the season, won the first set 25-13, the second set 25-17, and the third set 25-11. The Ramblers are now 1-10 for the season. They will look to pick up their second win tomorrow when they play conference team Drake University tomorrow night in the Gentile Arena.
Loyola University is mourning the loss of Kenedra Everson, who passed away on Monday from cancer. Everson has been with Loyola University for 15 years as a coordinator of the Spirit programs. Everson earned both her bachelor's and her master's here at Loyola and was a member of the dance team as a student. Everson is survived by her husband Jeff and daughter Julia. With the MLB postseason quickly emerging, every game is important for those teams who are in a tight division race.
Haley Spittler and a Ramble analyst discuss whether or not the MLB should make the strike zone computerized in this week's Ramble.
Welcome back to this week's Ramble. I'm your host, Haley Spittler, here with first-time Ramble analysts Michael McDevitt and Claire Philby. Recently, there's been a lot of controversy in baseball regarding umpires and some of the calls they've been making. Last week, we saw Cubs pitcher John Lackey and Cubs catcher Wilson Contreras get in a fight with an umpire regarding a missed third strike. So my question for you guys today is, do you think the MLB should implement a computerized strike zone? Claire, let's start with you.
I honestly think they should. I think that it's a good investment that they should make.
And Michael, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't think they should, because I think that the nuance that comes with it makes the game more exciting.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, Michael. One of the problems in baseball right now is that it's a really inconsistent game. There's umpires every day that have different strike zones, and the players have to learn what strike zone it's going to be that day. Don't you think having a computerized strike zone that would be the same for every player, every night, every ballpark, wouldn't that be a good thing to have?
Well, just as every umpire has a different strike zone, every pitcher pitches differently, and every batter has a different stance. So there's all those factors factoring into what the strike zone is defined as. I think that players and pitchers adapting to all of those different variables is what makes baseball exciting.
But according to the MLB and an article that they wrote on the automatic strike zone, or the computerized strike zone, they claim that they have the camera in center field. They would hook it up to the strike zone, and that would automatically set the strike zone. And that strike zone would be set off the guidelines used from the MLB umpiring department. And then also there's a database that records every MLB player's strike zone every time they swing the bat. And it takes the average of all their strike zones, of their strike zone, and then that's how they factor it in. So it wouldn't just be one strike zone, it'd be specific to each player.
Yeah, but Claire, I mean, technology isn't perfect just like umpires aren't perfect. This system could solve a ton of errors, including like, what if it just stops working in the middle of the game? Are we going to have a delay? What's going to happen?
Right, I'm not saying eliminate umpires completely. Like, by all means, I think umpires do a great job at what they do, but just adding in that computer element to be accurate, you won't get things like what happened with John Lackey. I mean, come on. This was clearly a strike. That was clearly a strike. And if we had a computerized system put in place, then that would have assured the umpire that he made that wrong call.
Michael, let's go back to that exact play. That was, argued that it was a ball. It should have been a third strike. I think that a lot of people agree that it was 100% a strike. That's an important game for the Cubs. They are trying to get their division, and they were playing another team in their division. Don't you think games like this, which hold such importance for teams, that having this computerized strike zone would be a benefit?
Now, I think it would be a benefit, but I feel that if, I think the point that I would talk about, or that I'd try and rebut Claire's argument is that as technology improves, of course it's going to get more accurate, more precise, but I also think that means that we will start demanding more precision of this technology. Who's to say that we'll even have a more designated strike zone that won't change with each pitcher and batter because of the increasing technology. So I think, if this might have been one bad call, if you give that umpire maybe 9 more tries to make that call, I'd say in the majority of the time he would call it correctly.
All right, one final question before we wrap things up. Baseball is known to be a very long game. Usually they're about 3 hours, and when you have to take time to argue these calls, it just expands. Don't you think having a computerized strike zone could speed up the game?
Yeah, but they said the same thing about instant replay, and while that has been an improvement for making sure plays are called more accurately when there's a lot of action going on, I can't tell you how many times I've seen the same footage of a player's foot either hitting the base before the first baseman catches it, played slowly and even more slowly over and over again. Which
all right, Claire, final remarks.
More.
Final remarks.
Okay, rebuttaling that, when you watch your team, and that's your team trying to be called out, don't you feel like really good that you have that replay there? Like having this assured computer system that could back up the umpire's decision could help with the pitch call accuracy. It's going to eliminate that human error that comes into play. And yes, you're right, 9 out of 10 times he's going to call it correct, but that one time, this computer system will help back it up, and you won't get balls being called as strikes and strikes being called as balls, because it goes both ways.
All right, I think you both made some really good points, but I think I'm going to have to go with Claire this week, because I do agree that you can still have the umpires on the field as backup. So tune in next week when you can see Claire right here as the host. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks, Haley. With the expansion of technology, it is best to use computers as the new strike zone.
For a full episode and the chance to get in on the conversation, follow and like our social media handles for an up-to-date look at all things Rambler Sports.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Evan Nave.
And I'm Queenie Ama. Check back next week for another episode of the Rambler Sports Locker.
And as always, don't forget to turn off the lights.